Good morning and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Live. We are live. Today is June 8th, 2023. All right, let's get into some stuff. But before that, we must ask Bender, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks. I don't.
Good. All
You
right.
don't have to. It's not a must, but
Well, I
yeah.
do. It's important that you're feeling that we know your space. It's important. Everybody wants to know what lens you're viewing the world through because it helps us if we know the temperature of the bender. So interesting day yesterday. It looked like we were kind of set to plow to the upside. Flow was looking pretty nice. And then we get the surprise rate decision coming out of Canada when they had basically started or begun their pause, if you will. They skipped a couple of cycles. And then they were like, hey, looks like inflation is a little bit sticky here. We're going to go ahead and bump again. So yesterday was a surprise. Australia earlier in the week was a surprise. It didn't get a lot of coverage, but two central banks have done something that I think is a little bit surprising. We did see a slight tick up in Fed funds futures yesterday off of that. But for the most part, the sentiment currently is that they are going to skip slash pause and let the data marinate. Data coming out this morning, it looks like job claims increased. So that picture, kind of is saying, hey, like maybe the data is starting to work. Maybe the job market is starting to slow down. Maybe they're getting what they need. That really is a big question. Another piece of data that came out yesterday, GDP out of the EU, not necessarily a good story, and I believe that they may be tipping into, if not officially, in recession. So that's Germany a couple of weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, and now the EU with Canada saying, hey, it's not going the way we want. We have to bump again. Um, that's that landscape. So when you have that drawdown that we did yesterday, that was on the backs of that Canadian, shakedown, if you will, or shake up, whatever you want to call it. The question is was that just an excuse to kind of pull profit and risk off in a meaningful way going into our meeting? And then we kind of level out and retip the upside. We're at this kind of in between and through here to where I think a lot of chartists will look at it. And I know Bender will go through it and Stonkington will go through it. That kind of puts us in a really interesting position as far as there's a very large move coming. And nobody can say with any type of real certainty which way that move is going to be. Like a very large move coming. I think all the chartists are talking about it. Everybody is kind of looking at it. Flow has been very strong to the upside, but we had some calls pulling off and some puts coming on yesterday that are, I don't want to say should be a concern. We just haven't seen that type of activity here in the here recently. So that's that. Now, how do we look at the day? Yesterday we went through that. Last night we had some shenanigans with GME, which is kind of expected. But I think some of these memes that were so hot and so intense, even from a social media following, as far as things that are trending or being talked about, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares about AMC, GME, or BBBY. No one cares. It's dead. Do we celebrate, Mender? Because it was such a scourge for so long. Should we celebrate?
I don't even pay attention to it.
See, and that's, I think that kind of speaks to it overall. That run, that moment in time was historic in so many ways, but just like in everything else, history tends to fade. All right, so Bender, that's what I have as far as my stuff. We're still setting the table, in my opinion, for next week in FOMC. The data continues to speak to kind of like, yeah, no, we're going to pause. We're not going to raise again. I think the question coming out of it is not necessarily the decision, but what is the messaging coming out of Powell? What is that messaging going to be? And how is he going to have to build some type of consistency going up to Jackson Hole in August? And yeah, no, we need to talk about August because we are in June. And what comes next, Bender?
July.
July. You heard it here. You heard it here. All right. So you want to walk us through what you got?
Yeah. Here is share my screen here. So we're looking at right here is the 60-minute. This is where I'm starting. 60-minute on ES, just to kind of show the pattern that we've been in. You know, we had this from down here at 41.20 up to 42.43, pulled back to that 50% retracement. We've talked about these extensions up here, and we've got that red shaded box, that previous fair value gap that we are monitoring, paying attention to, that has been acting as resistance, right? As far as yesterday is concerned, let me go to a 15-minute real quick. So this was the price action yesterday, right in here. The range was a total of about 30 points. Between, it was like 36, I guess, in regular trading hours. We didn't really do anything or go anywhere. You know, we had talked pre-market yesterday about the fact that London took out the highs and lows of the Asia session, and there was a good chance that, you know, or at least a decent chance that we would see something similar, which we did. So, you know, news, events, or whatever, you know, I don't know that we were really going to go anywhere. We could have, but I would say that the price action yesterday was somewhat mostly in line with kind of what we were thinking the day was going to set up like. This dotted line here is that that megaphone trendline resistance. So you can still see where that sits. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see what we're looking at as far as the London session high up here, 42.79. Asia session low, 42.62.75. And then this 15-minute fair value gap here that has now been filled, right? But you can see how it was acting as support in here, drop below, and now we're pressing up against it, acting as resistance. So, you know, I want to see us, if we're going to try to push up here, I want to see us get through that, use that as support, and we have a previous new week opening gap here at 42.88.5. And then there's another one, you know, up here, 43.15-ish, but also got the first weekly fair value gap here, 42.95. I think that, you know, if we can get through, if we're able to get through kind of the shaded box area, use that as support, we're looking at this previous new week opening gap, 42.88.5. Above that, you've got that first weekly fair value gap, and we're back up into those extensions up there. As far as, you know, what we might be looking for below, we've got that Asia session low. I think that's kind of the first key. If we break below that and pop right back above, then I wouldn't necessarily think that we're going to go a whole lot further. But if we get below it, it becomes resistance. This 42.51.5 level, you got a fib at 42.44.75, and then that previous new week opening gap is down at 42.40. One thing that, you know, I can't help but notice or kind of keep in mind is that, you know, when we do make those pushes to the upside, you know, it's often this sort of setup, right? We make a run, we pull back 50%, somewhere between 50%, 61.8%, and then we fire. And off this leg right here, we haven't really had much of a pullback yet. And the midpoint of this comes in right around that new week, that old new week opening gap. So, you know, if we get below that Asia session low, that is the area, the 42.40. In fact, let's get real quick. we'll get a midpoint here. This move, yeah. So 42, 41, 75. If we do get a pullback, that's the area that I would expect that they would come in. If they don't, if you don't see buying pressure in that 42.40 area, look out below. Then we're probably looking at that 42.20, and then. But for this to continue, right, a pullback to 42.40 would be perfectly reasonable. I think that's about it. I'm thinking they're probably going to keep this pretty tight again. I think that's possible. I'm not necessarily expecting any sort of big move, either direction. Probably keep it within that 30, 40 point range, but market does what the market wants to do. So if it decides to really start moving, we start getting some of those faster, not this garbage where it's just chip chop around. Play it as it comes.
Right on. Thank you very much. So it's a special time, Bender. You know why?
Why?
We got Sonny back. Sonny's back.
Yes, we do have Sonny back.
We got the Sun Man. Son,
No
how are
pressure.
you, sir?
No pressure. I'm good, sir. I'm good. Got enough sleep now, so
Excellent.
I'm back to the game. So let's get started. Upgrades this morning. Amazon outperformed from market performance. Amazon, they've been floating some news around it also, like they're gonna start paid ad tier level, comparing it to Netflix and what Disney has done. So watch for more headlines on that. And it's kind of funny they've been talking about that because Amazon does have a free V to the free version with ads in it on for about 2 years now. So this would be an interesting development as to what they come up with, like if what the price would be on it. The other one I found interesting was Home Depot HD price target raised by Wells Fargo to 345
Didn't
from
they guide
325.
down?
Yeah, but
didn't they have like a harsh guide down?
They probably did. But Wells Fargo is also starting initiations on names that have been around for years. They started initiation on Amazon too. After so many years, they think Amazon's $160 per share, going to reach the 2019 levels by 2025. So yeah, I think Wells Fargo is on a roll now. They also initiated on Uber. I think it's a $50. And it's interesting, like the stuff that they've been putting, especially like, when companies have been guiding down and there's been price target races and upgrades being handed out. Same with Lowe's. And downgrades, Apple. And Dollar General. And so it's like, this whole upgrade downgrade game is like, kind of like that. What was that movie? Moody's, they go to Moody's and say, hey, you got to give us an upgrade, got to give this company a downgrade.
Yeah.
It's, I wouldn't put too much weight into it.
It's a little bit goofy. Other than the price action, it's like you'll get a move one way or the other usually off of these upgrades, downgrades, but it's like longer term, it's a little bit goofy.
Yeah.
So they just now are coming to the conclusion that Amazon is a viable organization that they should be covering.
Yeah.
Well, God bless them.
And Apple downgrade was kind of interesting, after the news that came out, they helped Lionel Messi move to Miami.
Yeah, which is a pretty substantial deal for Apple TV in a lot of ways.
Yes, yes, it is.
It's like I don't think people are giving the credit that I don't say the credit, but the chatter kind of surrounding what that could mean as far as subscriptions over there. Not that it has a massive bottom line implication for Apple, but it's like that's a nice.
It should definitely give a bump. Yeah, it should definitely give a bump. And they've been trying to push the MLS, which has been lagging compared to all the other markets. I think this would give it especially with
Yeah.
the star power Lionel Messi.
It's like,
It should
and
give a
when
nice
Beckham
bump.
came to the Galaxy, and they weren't on contract then. I don't think Apple TV was even really a thing.
Yeah.
But that boosted ratings and attendance and merchandise. I mean, anything and everything.
Yeah, especially in the LA market. I mean, that was huge.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to like Messi coming over is going to be the thing that gets Americans to watch soccer. How many people's habits are? How many people are going to? Oh, we got a new player. Yeah, and I get it. Like, you know, he's a superstar. But I wonder, you know, how many people are going to, how much of an impact that's going to have. Like,
If you're talking about the American market, that's the one you don't look at. You look at South Americans, you look at Europe, you look at basically the rest of the world being like, I want to watch Messi play and subscribing to Apple TV.
Oh, yeah, I
And
guess I
not
didn't
only
think
that,
of it that way. Yeah.
it's also the ad revenue from the companies wanting to advertise more.
Yeah.
No, Hells, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Which, who knows? They may want to buy a headset to be able to watch. You never know.
They can't afford headsets.
You don't know this. You don't know this.
Use Apple Pay, put in buy now, pay later, watch the game.
Correct.
I mean, all the commercials that they show, like the kids playing soccer, and listen, I've experienced this because I spent time in South America, and yes, I saw them on dirt airport runways playing soccer. I saw them in the middle of, you know, they're not buying headsets, but
They're
it's
not
just
buying headsets, but they're gonna find a way to watch. They sport the merchandise. They're gonna, if Messi's drinking Coca-Cola instead of Pepsi, they're gonna go ahead and pull the trigger on that too.
So here's the other thing, right? Is just a counterpoint is that a sport that historically, I imagine they could see these players without needing a service from like Apple TV, right? Now all of a sudden their player is like, well, now if we want to watch them, we got to go. Interesting.
I'm going to go in on a limb and say that if Messi starts sporting this little headset, he can sell 200,000 all by himself. That's the power of branding and marketing.
Headsets.
I'm just telling you, man. It's like Bank of America put out the 1.5 million units, okay? But Messi can push 200,000 all by himself.
There you have it. Continue, please.
Continue, yes. Moving on to the EV market. Lucid has decided they're going to start selling in the Chinese market. We'll see how that goes for them. They may have to borrow and loan out the cars that they recalled here and ship them over there or something.
Decent flow into them recently.
Yeah. Carvana is the other one. So they're guiding ahead of their William Blair conference that they're attending this week. So they were up about 25%. So the Chinese government has launched a nationwide car purchase campaign for EV. Lower interest rate loans, things like that. They've been handing out. So watch Tesla, NIO, iX5, all that. Mobileye was initiated as a buy at price target of 50 by Canaccord. And just after that, Mobileye decided they're going to do an offering at 42. So it's hovering at 42 now. So that offering is going to close on June 12th. I think Mel picked up a 50 call on Mobileye, I think a few weeks out. There was some flow into that yesterday. 42 could be a good price to pick it up. Yeah, and they're attending a couple of conferences next week. And with all the news about, self-driving, things like that, Mobileye is pretty good up there to look into, especially for GM and Ford. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Sonny. Welcome back, buddy.
Thank you.
Stonkington, paging Stonkington.
Hello, I'm here. I'm officially a chartist. That's cool. I made the list. All right, we had the Game Stonks ER And I think we know what that's time for. Here we go. Found this bad boy. Who wants to buy that thing? Here we go. Straight from Game Stonks themselves. Today we've got the, what is this thing? MSI Infinite PCI 13900KF4090 24 gigabyte, 64 gigabyte. That thing, you can play some games on there, I think. And you got all the pretty colors.
It's pretty colors, man. I think that does it.
That makes it really fast.
That makes it at least $3,400.
Guess is rolling in. Sooners going for $5,000.
I'm going 3,400.
The guess is rolling in. Man, those purple fans, though. Whew. It's got to be. Oh, we got there, Dai DM 2,900, 2,900. All right. Full Moon's going 2,500. We got the winner here is going to be Bateman. So close, everybody. This one's coming in at, oh man, Sooner. So close. They had this one at $4,899.
Wow.
So close, so close. All
Hey,
right.
I was the closest.
Oh, I missed it. Where were you?
4,795.
Okay. Well then, sorry, Sooner, you just got cooked. All right.
Wow.
That's the way it goes. Let's get into the charts. Here we go. Sharing the screen. I know everybody's hungry for another smash burger. IWM. So just to really quickly recap what a smash day Larry Williams style is, basically a failed breakout. So we close below the prior day's low. We look for a break above the high to go long. Nice one. We close above the prior day's high. We look for a break to go short. Nice one. Closed above prior day's high. Look for the break below the short. Really nice one. And that's what all these circles were. Closed below prior day's low. Look for a break above the high. Nice one. So yesterday we closed above the prior day's high. So we will get an alert that pops in the room if we break yesterday's low for a potential short on the IWM smash day style. And you would put your stop right up here at the high of yesterday. That'd be your stop on the IWM. Also, I noticed that there was a big dark pool sitting right here from way back in August at 187.24, where it's showing we are right now. So we'll get an alert. Keep an eye out for that on IWM. So related, we'll check out the Russell. So we have this open area fair value gap, potential target to the downside, down to that 1861.20. This candle right here, this wick, we would have this would be a Mr. T order block because it was an up close candle followed by an aggressive push down, which would mean this was a bear basically pushing things up to get to higher prices. So we would draw a fib on just the wick area. Oh, that's not one. So we would just be looking at that midpoint, which would be this line right here. If we were to push up, I'd be looking for the reaction of that 1898.60 would be that order block line. And you can see it has reacted there previously as well. So that would be kind of, if we're going to push up on the Russell, that's what I'll be looking for. And then we've got this gold box. The gold boxes are daily fair value gaps, which also overlapped with this bigger, that would be on the 4 hour, and I guess on the hourly as well here. And then the pink box is the new week opening gap. So this is kind of what I'll be looking for on the Russell. And then it's just reacting. I found this trend line here that's got a couple taps against. So we'll see what we get there. If we jump over, let's switch over to the NASDAQ. Let's see. All right, so an hourly, Can kind of see right here that it's working on an inverse head and shoulders that may have already broken. Necklines would have been kind of somewhere up here, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And then we've got this 4-hour order block line that is working as support at the moment, which would basically just be this guy over here, down close candle, push up, and then these guys over here, down close candle, push up. Upside targets, I'll be looking first reaction, getting up into this fair value gap. Then we've got this order block line, 480.75, and then the orange boxes are going to be weekly fair value gaps. So I'm kind of just going to see what we get. And then we're still kind of inside this longer term wedge, respecting these trend lines that go way, way back. So we'll see what we get there on the NASDAQ, all these taps, and then reject it up there. Swapping over to individual tickers, I dropped the dark pools in the room, and I had Microsoft on the list because that one came in 6% average 30-day right here at 328 last night. So if we're going to push down, I'll be looking to see if that holds. And then next, going to watch for the reaction of this 322.65. Can see how that one came into play a couple times. Above, we would need to pop this 324.80 for some continuation to the upside. Can see where it reacted a few times there. And then we can check out Hell's nemesis, Netflix. Netflix does look like it is in a bearish rising channel here. Below, I'm going to keep an eye on this 397.65. You can see all the reactions there, like when to find areas where the bodies all react on the longer term candles. And then this was a fib I had, 403.25 to the upside. Going to see if we can pop that and hold. And that is all I have for today.
Very nice there, Stonkington. Yeah, so a couple of things to kind of close out. Flow into Netflix has been very, very, very squirrely. There's a lot of upside targets. We did see a little bit of action to the downside yesterday and then a couple of days ago, but they held Netflix fairly well up against the market sell yesterday, which is a little bit surprising in a lot of ways as far as the Netflix. But it's like that channel. It's like I see it too, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild. We did see some pretty bearish flow coming in at the end of the day on Meta yesterday. So Meta in particular is on watch for me. It's had a really nice run. That flow coming into Meta was fairly bearish towards the end of the day with not a lot of upside targets being offered, which, you know, in advance of yesterday's price action, it looked like it was going to, you know, continue to gravitate towards that 300 number. So I'll be watching particularly whether or not they're coming in on the bid on some of these puts that they were laying down yesterday for this week and next week. Meta on a fairly strong watch for me. I think Adobe also with their news and their pre-market pop, that was pretty substantial. I think we have to continue to watch Adobe flow. It's tried and true. Very rarely does that thing miss as far as flow in and around Adobe. So Adobe will be on hard watch for me also. As will Tesla, of course, as it tries to retake 230. That's kind of what I'm looking at. The last thing I want to talk about a little bit as far as to keep your eye on, and when we're leading up to FOMC, two indicators that are fairly helpful to watch overall is see how the market is reacting to the dollar gold pairing. See if you can find, say, as you're coming into FOMC, that gold dollar move can be telling in a lot of ways. So gold is cooled off, but is bouncing here a little bit today. We saw the dollar fairly strong yesterday. The dollar is cooling off a little bit more. I think a lot of that move yesterday was based on the reaction of potentially rates going higher that were not necessarily expected in the near term. So that obviously is going to impact that pairing. So watching how that price recovers and moves, whether or not it retraces, what it does, I think is going to be very, very important moving forward, at least going into FOMC. Those things move hard and fast on monetary policy. So we've been, I don't want to say ignoring it, but we haven't been as in tune with it recently because it hasn't been a good indicator. Might be time to take a peek again. So that's all I got, guys. Do you have anything else?
I'm good.
Yeah, nothing else from me, I suppose.
Bender, is that you making the charts show up here when I talk?
No,
Not at the moment.
Who was doing that?
That is Stonkington.
Stonkington. Thank you, Stonkington. Thank you very much. Thank you kindly. I appreciate you. All right.
Here's your Bitcoin chart, Hells, that we talked about a couple days ago, coming down to that
Tickling the
midpoint
box.
there, tickling the box, holding in there so far. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
So
in here.
it's funny. Do you think that, or if you were to just guess that based on that news and based on the SEC and all that, that spill down would have been much more dramatic if this thing was going to completely just peel out to the downside? You would think. Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Bender. Thank you, Stock. Thank you, Sonny. We'll see you soon.
See you in a few.